Hey guys, it's Alex, and today I'm here with a book review for Just Listen by Sarah Dessen. This is a young adult contemporary novel about a girl named Annabelle. Annabelle has recently lost all of her friends and is struggling with her home life with her sister's eating disorder and her mother's pushing her to continue being a model. But then she meets a cute boy who helps her come into her own and start being honest with other people and most importantly herself. I gave this book 4 stars. I love Sarah Dessen. I've done several reviews of Sarah Dessen books before. I think as a teen, this was not one of my favorites. This was always kind of just like, I enjoyed it. It was up there, but it wasn't like one of my top couple Sarah Dessen novels. However, reading it as an adult, I really loved it. I think Annabelle's character is so well done. She's such a passive character, which can be hard to write in a book because you're writing a book around a character who is not really pushing the plot on her own. But Sarah Dessen does a great job of crafting the book around her. I really love when passive characters are done well in stories, and Annabelle is probably one of my favorites for that. I had two main issues with this book. The first is flashbacks. A majority of the story is told through flashbacks, and it feels like that's almost the bulk of the story at times. Like, that is the most important aspect. It's not the present where we're with Annabelle, it's when we're hearing about things that happened in the past. And I'm not the biggest fan of that. I do think it was very interesting, and I was always down for it because I wanted to find out more about her. But I do think when so much of the story is told in the past, it does create kind of a disconnect, and I'm not hearing about what Annabelle's doing now, even though we are in the present with her. The second issue I had is that there was some excess in this book. There were just some scenes and characters that really didn't need to exist. They didn't contribute anything to the story. Annabelle would go to a party, and before anything important happened, she would play a game of beer pong with some guys who were flirting with her. And that would be just a scene that happened, and it would never go anywhere. Those guys would never come back, and it was just kind of questionable that it was included at all. But I think those were both fairly minor issues. I thought this was wonderful. What I really love in this book is the emphasis on family, because Annabelle's family dynamic is such an important part of the story. She has two older sisters as well as a mother and a father, and I do think if you like the elements of books that focus on sisters, I definitely recommend this. It's not the major focus of the story, it's more about Annabelle herself and her character development, but her older sister Whitney has an eating disorder and is struggling with that throughout this book, and it's really wonderful to see her progression as a side part of the story. It's not about Whitney, but you do get to see a lot of Whitney, and her character seems so fully fleshed out. And her other sister, Kirsten, also has a really strong positive influence on this story. And I think at the beginning of this book, Annabelle is definitely more distant from her sisters than from her parents. But as the book goes along and as she grows as a person, you can see her starting to grow closer to her family and really feel like she deserves to be close with them. And I think that's wonderful. I do want to say, heads up, there is a trigger warning for sexual assault in this book. I don't really want to get into it because it's not a spoiler, but it is something that I don't think you should really know too much about going in. But just so you are aware of that, there is a sexual assault in this book. I honestly don't know how I feel about the romance in this book. Her love interest, Owen, definitely has some problems of his own, and I don't think it's always dealt with particularly well, especially the way he treats her. He's not abusive or anything like that, but he is kind of short and abrupt with her at times and will write off things she says and is kind of sexist as well. Some of it is dealt with very well. I think the way she confronts his sexism is very well done, but there were other elements I wasn't sure about, and I honestly kind of feel like the romance wasn't necessary to this story, and I would have loved this just as much if she hadn't had a romance with Owen. I do get that this is a romance novel. Dessen is a romance author, but at some points her books do kind of focus more on the main character and on their growth within the story, and the romance is kind of a side element. So I kind of enjoyed that, but I also do think that I would have enjoyed this book a little more had it not been romance at all. I did want to say one brief thing that I listened to this on audiobook. It's a reread for me. I've read it several times, but I loved the audiobook for this. It normally takes me a few weeks to listen to audiobooks, but this one only took me a few days because I was just enjoying it so much. I would just lay in bed and listen to it for a couple hours because it was so much fun. The narrator did try to give distinct voices to every single character, which got a little bit cartoonish and silly at times. I don't think that was necessarily bad. I thought it was kind of amusing and it entertained me, so it made for an entertaining audiobook. But I did thoroughly enjoyed listening to this audiobook. End of the day, if you like young adult contemporary novels, I recommend picking this up, especially if you like something that's more serious. It's dealt with in a wonderful way, and I do think this is a really strong book. Let me know down below if you read Just Listen and what you thought of it if you have. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see y'all again soon.